Hey everyone, how you doing? Thanks for joining me today. We're just going to do a quick 10-minute happy hips routine. All you'll need is a mat and no other equipment. So let's get started. These exercises are designed to stabilize the hip joints and so that the bone is sitting right nice and centered in the socket. So your hips will feel nice and strong and centered. Let's get going. We'll just warm up the hips by starting by lying on our back, drawing our right knee into our chest, and using those arms to just give that knee a nice pull into the chest. Gently start to float the knee side to side. Your goal here is just to kind of massage the front of the hip, stretch out those deep hip flexors right on the front of the hip socket. And then straighten that right leg up into the air, kick it up and down. Just bringing a little bit of blood flow to the joints, waking up those joints, just wiggling the knee side to side. And we'll do that on the other leg, left knee pulling into the chest, using the hands and arms to compress the knee down towards the chest. And then gently just floating the knee side to side, take some nice deep breaths. Really feel this feeling of compression down into that hip joint, massaging the hip flexors. Good, kick the leg out a few times, and then wiggle the knee in and out, just like this. Great, so we're gonna come to lying on our left side first. Side lying just here. So in this side lying position, you wanna make sure your hips are stacked, so not rolling back like so. Hips are stacked one on top of the other, and I'm using my hand to stabilize me throughout most of this routine. Okay, so my knees are bent to about 90 degrees and my knees are slightly in front of my hips right now. Okay, we're just gonna start by slowly floating that right leg up and then slowly floating it down, making sure the knees are in line. So if I'm here versus lining them up, slowly floating it up and floating it down. So we're targeting those external glute muscles here, abductors, and floating it down. Try to really make sure you're feeling that glute muscle engaged. So you can even place your hand right sort of at the side, kind of towards the back a little bit. And just focus your energy on that place. You can also think of lengthening that right knee out of the hip, lengthening it long and away, and making sure you're controlling your pace here. And down. Let's try 3 more. Can you draw your belly button into your chest, into your spine? To making sure we're having some nice core control. Nice. So these exercises will build a slow, gradual, deep burn, okay? So if you're not feeling anything too crazy yet, don't get ahead of yourself, it will come. All right, let's leave this leg up into the air. We're gonna start to float that knee slightly forward, and then float it back to center, floating it back behind you. Back to center, so the knees are in line. Right knee floats forward, knees in front of that left knee, center, and back, and center. Floating forward, center, and back, center, forward, and back. Make sure you're breathing deeply forward, and back. Good, bring it back to the center. From here, we think of dropping the knee down to the floor, lifting the foot. So you're coming into internal rotation. Go into the reverse, drop the foot, lift the knee. The pelvis isn't moving here, it's just the leg bones. Drop the knee and lift the knee. Rotating in and out and in and out. You might feel a little bit of a stretch inside the joint here as well. See if each time you can do it, you can push your range of motion. So drop that knee even further back. Internally rotate, feeling the femur bone twist in the joint and up. For 4 and 3. Engaging that core a little bit more. 2 and 1. Good. Let it go. Coming back to center. Dropping that right hip down. Give your glute a little tap here, so you should feel a bit of a gentle burn. Before we go on, we're gonna do those on the other side. So taking your left knee on top, again, knees are slightly in front of the hip, Hand is here to stabilize and really stack the hips so we're not rolling back, but keeping them stacked forward. Lifting that leg up and then floating it down. Lifting up. Try to focus on your groin muscles as well here, these inner thigh muscles, so that as you drop the knee down, you're controlling your pace. Bring the knees all the way together. Controlling to come down. Lifting up, coming down. Lengthening that knee away from the socket. Nice long femur bone. See if you can imagine creating space inside the hip joint. Coming up. Control to come down. So you should lightly feel those groin muscles, those adductor muscles working for 3 and 2 and 1. Nice work. Good. Lifting it up. This is your neutral position. You slide the knee forward. You bring it back to neutral. You slide the knee back, bringing it back to neutral. Coming forward. Can you lengthen the top of the femur bone back? As you drift back, make sure you feel your glute max engage. And forward. Feeling the top of the femur bone float to the back of the joint as you go back. And forward. That left sit bone is reaching long from underneath the glute. And forward. And going back, engaging the glute muscle. Last 2. And last 1. And back. Good. Coming into our internal external rotation. Dropping the knee, lifting the foot. Other side. Other direction, sorry. Drop the knee, lift the foot. So you're feeling that femur bone twist right inside the joint. Rotate inside the joint. And up. And down. And up. So here my foot is higher than my knee, and here my knee is higher than my foot. Deepen that rotation if you can. Press it back for 4 and 3. The pelvis is still throughout this whole sequence, okay? So we're not rolling the hips around. The leg is the only thing moving. Good. Let that go. Tap it out. And we'll flip back over onto the other side. All right. Side lying once again. You're going to lift that leg up straight into the air. Flex the ankle. And you're going to rotate the hip to turn out. Rotate, bring the knee forward. Rotate to turn out. Femur bone is rotating within the joint. And then this feeling is like somebody's holding onto your foot and pulling that foot out and away from the joint. Finding the deep rotators here. Rotate, turn the knee towards the ceiling and come back and in. Coming back. Yes, the knee is nice and straight. Good. Good, find that rotation, hold it here. You're gonna bring the heels together. So the leg is externally rotated, and then we'll use the groin to bring the heels together. Squeeze the inner thighs. That should feel like work for those groin muscles. Squeeze the heels together. Squeezing down and up and down and up. Breathing. Quad muscle is firing. Knee is straight. Toes turned up to the ceiling. And 2. And 1. We're going to take this double time going down, up, down, and down. Squeeze. Squeeze straight knee for 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. Good stuff. Just take the knee forward, tap out that glute. Should really be feeling that gluteus medius here. Nice work. Good. Flipping over to the other side. Let's get that left side. Finding the rotators first. Ankles flexed, leg lifted to 45. Rotate, turn the toes out. Come back down. Rotate, turning out. Back down, turn out, and down. Good. Nice long spine. Left quad is engaged. Super straight knee. Long leg. Someone's pulling your leg out of the hip socket. Really radiate from the hip. Turn out, turn in. Rotate, turn out. 4, 3, and 2, And 1. Holding your rotation, bring the heels together, lift it up, slowly lower it down, lifting up, squeeze the inner thighs, pulling the belly button to the chest, and down, and up, down, and up, down, and up. That's it. Squeeze those inner thighs, get the heels all the way together. 3, and 2, and 1. Take it double time. Go squeeze, 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 squeeze. Long leg, straight knee, active inner thigh. 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. Good. Bend the knee, give the glute a little tap. All right, we're coming on to our back. Last little sequence here. We'll start by just having the feet hip distance, wiggling the knees in and out. Just loosen up those inner thighs and hip joints. Let's bring the knees up to tabletop. Give yourself a nice amount of space in the hip flexors, arms down by your side. Drop the belly button to the floor. We want to make sure it's the low abs working here, not the hip flexors clenching. So see if you can really find space, find a sort of fluid feel in the front of the hip flexors. Knees and ankles are together. Bring those knees to 90 degrees. We start by floating the knees out and away from each other. We slowly float them back in. Head of the femur dropping down to the floor. Floating out, slowly coming back in. Lengthening the knees away from the hip socket, just like before. Squeeze all the way in. Floating out. Make sure you're not dropping the knees out to the side, okay? As with all of these exercises, a slow pace is key, and a smooth movement is key. No jerky movements. Slowly bringing it in, and bringing them out. For 4. Belly button dropping to the floor. 3. Hips are still 90 degrees. Make sure your hips aren't floating towards your chest. 2. And 1. Good. Opening up here. We're just going to find a little pulse. Knees pulsing up to the ceiling. Up, 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 up. Try to keep the shoulders relaxed, the neck relaxed. 4, 3, and 2, and 1. Good. Just bring the feet back down to the floor. Kick the legs out straight. Wiggle the feet in and out a few times. Your very last thing here. Heels are nice and close to your bum. Feet are just slightly more narrow than hip distance. So it's about 2 inches of space between my heels right now. Okay, you're going to start by really feeling your heels drop down into the floor. So you're activating the backs of the legs, and you're looking at that space between your knees, and you're making sure it doesn't change as you press your hips up. And then slowly come back down. Pressing up, coming back down. Heels are heavy into the floor. Space between the knees is staying equal. The low back is reaching long, so the tailbone is reaching away down towards the heels. Belly button pulling up and in. Coming up and down. Go 3. Go 2. And then holding this last one up. I'm going to heel toe my feet so they're tight together now. Knees are tight together. We're going to really drop heavily into our big toe joints and lift the heels up off the floor, squeezing the knees and ankles together. Heels drop, they come up. Squeeze the knees and heels and up. Keep the hips lifted, heels down, heels up. Big toe mounds dropping into the floor. We're really lighting up that whole inside line of the leg, all the way from the big toe up into the hips. Squeeze the knees, squeeze them tighter. And 4, and 3, and 2, and 1. Good. Slowly dropping the hips back down into the floor. Straighten the legs out in front of you. You should feel a nice, healthy buzz within the muscles, in and around the hips here after doing that routine. And then we'll take a little stretch. Once again, drawing the knee into the chest. We'll take the knee across the body, a little bit of a low back twist. Coming back to center, lengthen that leg back out. Right knee comes in, dropping the knee into the chest. take some nice deep breaths here. Dropping the knee across the body into a low back twist. Deep breath. And coming back to center, just roll yourself up to sit. We'll take a little stretch for the external rotators, flexing that ankle, flexing that knee to about 90 degrees. You can always bring the heel a little closer, a little further, and we'll just stretch out the glute muscles. This is a great routine that you can do anywhere in a small space. If you're ever short on time or short on space, this is a great little routine just to kind of get things a little bit fired up, wake you up a little bit, wake up the hips if you're spending a long time sitting throughout your day. Great little routine to keep those hips nice and open, but also active and centered. Take the legs out in front, just wiggle the feet in and out. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.